Hello.
Oh,
How's it going, dudes?
How's
hi,
it going, dudes?
hi. Welcome to Exploring Runeterra with episode 3 with special guest Malverick, and I guess Justin's here too.
I'm not a
What's up?
special guest. I've been here since day one.
I I, I keep
He's the special guest.
I keep forgetting about I keep forgetting about you.
Oh,
Oh,
Ooh.
damn.
All right, we're starting off strong this week without Taylor, so I guess that works out well. Um, and this week we're gonna be discussing Aurelia, like we've been saying we would be doing for about 3 weeks now, and then we'll go into Pyke a little. So, first off, I guess I'll ask the same question I ask every week. What do you guys know about Aurelia?
I know a pretty good deal about it, really.
What about
He's in
I don't
charge
know.
of
No, go
a
ahead.
fucking faction called the Brotherhood.
uh
The Brotherhood.
the Navari Brotherhood?
Yeah.
Navari? I can't say the word, but and all right, Justin, what do you know? Since apparently we have a
Uh,
fucking expert in here.
I don't know anything lore-wise. I just have been watching a lot of G-Bay, and he talks about the rework of Irelia, and he fucking bitches about it a lot.
All right, well,
But
strongly disagree with him. I love New Aurelia, so he can shut the fuck up.
he's been getting used to it.
Oh, okay, that's good.
That's some
That's good. Then
shade
he's good.
here.
We're good then. All right. Joking aside, though, you were on the right path there. So I guess we're gonna have to go back. Do you know anything about the Ionian invasion, Justin?
Yes, I do know about that because I've read up a lot on like Riven and Darius and all
All
those
right.
peeps.
All
So
right. Well, I will call you in for the Darius one as well, since you're a filthy Darius main. So basically with Aurelia, uh, her name is Zan Aurelia, and
Ooh.
yeah, so she actually has a name before Aurelia. But basically, um, the way her story starts is she was a young girl, and she was very interested in dance, and she was taught dance by her grandmother, or her, I believe it's Omha. Let me make sure about that real quick. All right. Yeah. So she was taught dance by her grandmother, and they were very close. And basically, that's how it starts. And all her movements are dance. Like it's actually if you watch her dance or you watch some of her moves, Riot. At least at PAX, when I went there because they released a video of her before she was released, and it was like showing all her moves, and they're explaining the inspiration. She really is based on sword dancing. Like they actually took videos of
Oh.
people, and they made sure that the movement was correct and everything. Like they were very focused on it being uh 100% accurate.
It's
So
badass.
yeah, it's very interesting. So she eventually left home after training with her grandmother, and she went to go to the Placidium of Navori, and she wanted to train to become like a professional dancer. And if we talked about this on an earlier podcast, where the Battle of the Placidium is the big turning point in the Ionian invasion. Um, so we also talked about the Ionian way of life, where it's very peaceful, like they don't fight. Um, so eventually the Noxians invade, and Aurelia returned to her village. She was about 12 or 13 around this time, and she came, and the Noxians had taken over her village, and they've killed her family. They killed everyone in her family. Um,
Oh
and they
my
were
god.
in from what I remember, at least her brothers and her father were confirmed dead. Some of her voice lines imply that everyone's dead, so it's kind of up in the air. But basically the Noxians were dragging everyone out of their homes, and she walked up, and she discovered that her family was buried in unmarked graves, and they were raiding the houses. And Aurelia's, what this is going into the backstory of her weapons, actually. They're not swords. From what I understand, it's actually her family crest that was shattered by the Noxians in front of her to
Oh.
basically break her, and she gathered all these parts, and they were going to kill her. and she picked up all these pieces, and she can only describe it as feeling a rhythm inside her chest, and these swords came alive and they cut down 2 Noxians, and everybody was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this little girl just made these swords come alive. And like, she ran off with them, and they kind of just were like, oh. And she cut down Noxians along the way, and at this point, the man leading the attack on our village was named Duqual. uh they were just completely dumbfounded by what they had witnessed. So she kind of escaped, and she mourned for her family, and that was her childhood, was basically training and then coming back and finding her family dead. And she now has the crest of Ionia, her family, the Zon family, which is her weapons. So
Yeah.
before I go any further, does anyone have any questions or
I,
comments?
I I just think that's so interesting that she just fucking made a
I didn't know
crest
that.
into a
It was
weapon.
the crest, yeah. Thought it
Yeah,
was just swords, basically.
Yeah, it's they're not actual weapons. They're actually her family crest, which was always really interesting because if you look at them, they're all jagged pieces of metal. They're not actually swords or daggers. Like, they actually took the time to point it out that it's jagged piece of metal. And if you put them all together, I think there's a picture. I might have to find it. I know I have it saved on my computer. There's a picture of all the daggers put together, and it does actually make a crest. Uh,
oh,
yeah.
Interested.
So they did put a lot into it. Uh, so she's running out, and rumor is that Karma, who in the lore was actually removed from the council, and she's now just called the religious leader of Ionia. So, fun fact there.
oh damn.
So she had to strike out, and they pulled back into something called the lasting altar, and they are basically like, we can't be violent anymore. We have to let balance take its course. Ionia's protected us for years now. They'll protect us now. Um, but there were sprouts of low resistances forming up, and Irelia returned back to the Placidium, and she joined one of the resistance groups there. Um, so this is where it gets interesting. Swain was the leader, the general who tried to take the Placidium. And while we'll go into the events of leading up to that, eventually, Swain was basically doomed to fail here. He was not supposed to survive.
Oh
Uh,
damn.
and uh, so what happened is Swain and his men took the Placidium, and they took all these defenders, and they kind of trapped them, locked them all up, and they're like, okay, our plan here is we're going to have the Ionians try to rescue these men so they can fight back, and when they come in, we're just going to murder them. We're just going to kill them all, and we'll take this, and Ionia's going to fall. Like, this is Bunker Hill, basically, for Ionia. It's like this is the battle we need to win if we're going to survive the rest of the war. It's do or die for them.
Yeah.
So what happened was Aurelia wasn't chained properly, and she was able to escape. And she had her crest in her bag, and she was able to cut down all these soldiers and free the rest of them. So now they had the Ionian reinforcements coming on them, and they were also having the freed soldiers. And Aurelia was cutting through all these Noxians. She eventually made it to Swain, and she took his arm. And that is why he
Oh.
has the demon hand now.
Oh yeah, like that one
He has that.
redhead.
Aurelia
Yeah.
has his original arm, or had. I don't know. I don't know if she carries it around. It'd be a
I
little
imagine
weird if she did.
cut it off. I don't think she'd be
Keeps
weird if she
I
carried it around with her.
I think it'd be pretty funny. She'd be like, listen here, old man.
I
it's
really got a
Hey,
it's
hand.
Swain, you need a hand.
it's that episode of SpongeBob. She's like, how many times we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Show him his fucking arm. It's
so
funny.
um so this battle became the Great Stand in Navori. Um and Aurelia just was thrown into the spotlight. She became the leader of a new movement. Uh, Everybody's fighting back against the Noxians, and eventually she led their army back to it's called Dalu Bay, and basically the man who had killed her family was the general there, and she personally exacted the vengeance that she was waiting for all these years.
Oh
Uh,
damn.
so from what I understand, she was 17 at the time the Ionian invasion had ended, and she killed the admiral, and now it's 10 years later, and she's still seen as a leader for Ionia. Uh, she doesn't, but she doesn't want to be. She's, she was basically thrown in as the leader of an entire country, a new movement, because you have to remember that during these times there was two philosophies. There's the old ways, which is like the kinku and karma, who are like, we have to let balance take its course, and these new people who are like, we have to fight back. We can't depend on balance anymore. We need to start fighting. So
Yeah.
Nothing wrong.
yeah, so there's these two movements. She's basically like the poster child, and she's been the poster child for so long, and people keep looking to her for answers. They're like, what do we do? How do we do this? And she doesn't know. She's very scared. She's still a child in many ways. And
Yeah.
she's 27 now, but she doesn't want this power and she can't get rid of it. And so the ending of her lore is basically that she wants to dance alone. And there's this moment that I was at the PAX East panel, like I said, when they released her, and I thought this was a really cool but kind of sad fact. They said her recall animation is a very important part of her character. They said the head writer said this. He said, "This is the moment where Irelia is alone and she can dance, and you'll see in her recall animation she dances very gracefully. It's a very nice recall animation." But he said this is the one moment where she's alone. Nobody's depending on her. The people of Ionia, her team is not depending on her. So she can do what she loves the most. And that's
Wow.
dance. And
Like it's just her time to just
it
finally do the things she loves.
she never wanted to be a leader. She never wanted to be anything. And she just wanted to dance as a young child, and everything was taken from her, and she was thrown into the spotlight, and she has no option but to lead a country. And in her story, we are brought back to current day Irelia, and it opens up with somebody trying to kill her. It's somebody
Oh.
screaming, "I believed in you, Blade Dancer. I believed in you," and she cuts him down. And he's talking about united as one people. We were supposed to do this, and he keeps saying the words, "I believed in you. We all believed in you," and he feels betrayed. And her response finally, when she cuts him down and he says it one more time, is, "I never asked you to believe in me. I'm so sorry." And she then closes his eyes, and he dies, and she brings him. And so the next part of the story is she's dragging him through this little village, or like wherever she is, and she brings him to everyone's kind of like staring at her, but she eventually brings him to a cemetery, and she notices that a lot of people are there. They're burying a lot of dead bodies, and she notices I believe it's a man, uh and she puts her hand on his shoulder, and she's like, "I'm sorry for your loss." She's trying to be, comfort. She's trying to be human, basically. She's trying to like say how
Yeah.
sorry she is, and he smacks her hand away, and he just stares at her. He doesn't want anything to do with her, and she is
Oh.
so taken back that she just kind of like, she starts to reassure herself that everything was necessary. These fights are necessary. Every sacrifice is necessary. And you discover through this that they're actually at war again, but it's with a group called the Brotherhood of the Navori. Um, and we don't know much about them, but she describes them as being as bad as Noxus. And
Oh,
what
Oh
I
fuck.
from what I understand is like the way yeah, this is a biased opinion, it's Aurelius, but it's the only information we have on them. It's that they are basically trying from one can assume is that after the invasion of Noxus, they're basically like, we need a centralized government. We need to like fight, and we need to like be prepared, and we need to be the invaders, not the invadees. And she's just like she's trying to stop it from happening because she doesn't want this, like you're replacing one dictator with another, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So she's fighting back, and she meets this old woman, and she sees them at she's talking to them, and she notices that she's singing an old song, and she notices that she's next to a grave, and they talk, and you find out it's the old woman's nephew who had died fighting. And Aurelia apologizes, and she's this old woman's treating her like a human, basically. They're just having a conversation, and it's kind of nice. And Aurelia admits that she wonders if she did the right thing, that she if she killed the peace of Ionia. And she, she just explains that the world's a different place now, and that things needed to change. And she takes out this small bowl of like food, and she tries to open it, and she's like, see, I can't even open this bowl, things always change. And she's kind of making lighthearted of this situation, but Aurelia sees the lesson in her story, and she's like, okay, like things had to change, like I'm not the one who killed the peace. And she kind of is more okay with herself as like a leader after this talk, and that's her short story.
Like, yeah, like she just feels more like comfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely something you should read. It's beautifully written. It's 3 parts. It maybe takes 10 minutes to read, but that is the short, like short and long of it, basically.
That's a nice story.
Yeah, it's
It's
def.
like, it's
Oh,
like a little coming of age story.
exactly. And I mean, overall, Aurelia was, she's a girl who, she's in a way the opposite of Swain, who fought for power and was like, she Swain came in and he fought for power. He did a coup, and he set up this entire new government in Noxus. And Aurelia is was thrown into the spotlight. She's the leader of a movement. She has no intentions of being the leader, but she's got to
Yeah.
do it. Like she's the exact opposite in Swain in some ways, and it's just interesting that the battle of Placidium had changed these two people so much, and now they're both fighting two very different battles in their own nation.
That
Now,
is that
because
is
like
crazy.
Irelia is a pretty important character. Does she have any interactions, I imagine, with like Zed or Shen or
Sh-
like any of those other huge Ionian figures? Because I feel like it's in the lore at some point they had to have cross paths or something.
Yeah,
They
like at some point.
they have special interactions within the game that shows Aurelia's opinions on certain groups. Aurelia, so to go back real quick to that panel once again, they showed kind of a chart of like they called it the moral spectrum of Ionia, and at the top is Karma. In second place was the Kinku. In third place was Aurelia. Fourth was Zed. Fifth was Jin. I shouldn't say the moral spectrum because that implies like somebody has poor morals. It was like leaning toward on Karma's end. It was more like peaceful pacifist with the, and then the Kinku were the like peaceful. They only interfere when balance is in. And then Aurelia was still good, but she's more of a proactive, like we need to fight. While Zed wants to like march on Noxus and kill Swain, take his head, and then Jin's just crazy. He just wants to murder people.
It's just a fucking yeah.
So that was the spectrum they showed up on the board, and that's really important for how the interactions with Aurelia go. She shows extreme disgust towards the Kinku minus Akali. She does not show disgust towards Akali. Uh, she's like she's upset they won't do anything, and she's upset with Karma for not doing anything. And when interacting with Jin, I mean with Zed or Syndra, or Varys, she gets angry and she's like, "You need to use your darkness to help fight off these invaders. Like, you need to help us. Like, you're Ionian." And when it comes to Akali, she mentions that she likes Akali's attitude, but she does not like her style. It's more of a joking line, but it does reference that Akali's not a fan. If we're assuming that Akali has a similar attitude to Irelia, Akali's not a fan of the Kinku, which supports the idea that she is going to be leaving the Kinku in her rework. And there's a lot
Oh.
more hints towards that, like, but we will discuss that with the upcoming Kinku thing. I won't get into that now.
Wait, is the king? You keep saying Kinku. I'm not sure who they are. Is that like the ninjas?
Yes, that's
Oh,
Shen. That's Shen, Kennen, and Akali.
okay, okay. I was guessing so.
Okay, yeah, that is my favorite trio in all of the League of Legends lore. I will. It's my fiddlesticks basically.
Canon.
I love Kennen, but he's in such. Okay, we're getting off topic. He's in a bad spot in the lore right now, but we'll get to that another time. So that is Irelia. She is a young woman who is leading a country but has no idea what to do, and at the end of the day, she wants to basically be alone. So, I mean, that's basically it for Irelia. Unless you guys want to talk about anything else real quick, I will
I
go
don't
into
think I have
Pyke.
anything else to add on Irelia. You pretty much said everything there was to say about her.
Yeah, I still think that fucking whole crest thing is really interesting. That
Yeah, yeah,
blew my mind.
she's honestly an amazing character, and I cannot stress enough that people need to like look at the lore page and stuff. Because when I was talking to him at PAX, I actually got to talk to the head writer, and I got 5 or 10 minutes alone with him where I got to ask him whatever I wanted. And that poor man was not ready.
What do you write
Poor
about fiddlestick
bastard.
stories?
Well, there's multiple head writers. I couldn't ask him about anything besides earlier. I did ask him though, are we going to be seeing more of the Navori Brotherhood?
Can
And
you ship Irelia and Zed?
do I? Damn it! I'm not asking the real questions, Austin. I'm gonna have to send you next time. You're gonna be our agent on the ground,
I should.
our reporter in the field. Um, so, that said, I did ask him, are we gonna see more of that? And he said there's high hopes that we are eventually going to see more of this brotherhood, but there's no promises in the future, which is a little upsetting, but we'll get to that eventually. Like,
Yeah,
hopefully. Um,
hopefully.
so with the new release, let's talk about Pyke and what you guys think about him. This is more opinion because nothing is really set in stone lore-wise yet, except for a couple obvious things. So, what do you guys think of Pyke?
Well, isn't it basically like he was essentially a pirate, I would say, or like something akin to a pirate, but then he like drowned and he blamed everyone that like he worked with for his death, and then like now he's like hunting them down as a revenge, basically. That's like what the gist of it was, wasn't it?
Very
Yeah.
close, very very close. Um, so he's a famous serial killer,
Oh,
from
okay.
what I understand, and he did drown and he was betrayed. But the only thing that's different about what you said and what they said is the list is never ending. It has everybody's names on it. From
Yeah,
Everybody?
they
yeah,
they made very sure in his voice lines, because he has this joke where he's like, "You're not on my list. Stay like that. Oh wait, I wrote you on the back."
or
So like
yeah,
everything he says, everybody's on his list. They're
But in
just
lore, does he have any connections to any of the characters?
that's actually a very interesting thing. There is a fun fact that I recently discovered thanks to League of Legends subreddit. Miss Fortune's lore. I don't know if it's her new lore or her old lore, but in Miss Fortune's lore, it discussed how she brought this blood. Oh shit, what's his nickname? It's something Blood Ripper Killer or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say, dude? I'm gonna look it up real quick. But
sounds familiar.
Pyke Blood Ripper. Uh, but basically, Misfortune was known. Yeah, he's called the Blood Ripper. All right. So Pyke was known as the Blood Ripper Killer. Misfortune's known for actually bringing him in at one point.
Whoa.
This is actually now subject to change because they've introduced him as a character. But her claim to fame was she apparently dragged the Blood Ripper Killer out of his lair and either killed him or turned him in or whatever. But that was her claim to fame for a little while. And
Oh damn.
So I don't know if that's up to change now, or they're going to keep that included in his story. But that is a fun fact that he was mentioned months ago in Misfortune's lore, or even years ago in Misfortune's lore.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah. So I don't know if that was like intentional or not, but if it was, that is some long-term storytelling by Riot, and I applaud him for
Yeah,
that. But
that's some like long fucking. They knew that shit was gonna be a thing way back.
But here's an interesting thing. A lot of people have been comparing him to a revenant. Do you guys know what a revenant
Yep.
is? All right. So basically, for those who don't know, it's a ghost that seeks revenge and can't rest until it finds revenge. Except Pyke, everybody's on his list, no matter who you are. So so he's not going to be able to get rest. He has to. He literally has to kill everybody.
He just has to
Secret
keep.
tidbit in the game: if he gets a pentakill, it just disappears from the game.
DC's
Dissipates.
DC's you won't let you rejoin. Um, but I mean, honestly, I think he looks awesome. From a lore perspective, I'm also a support main, so I will totally be kill securing for my
Kill
ADC.
securing.
If you get a pentakill, one of his lines is "Did I support right?"
Yes, I'm a big fan of that. Uh, I'm really big into this champion. I'm very excited for him. I think he has some cool lore already. I'm very excited to see where it goes. Um, I mean, what do you guys think about like this whole serial killer theme for? I mean, we have Jin.
He's got to have some Jin like voice line interactions. He's got to have some interactions with Jin.
He does, and they did release his voice lines, and he makes fun of Jim. He says, I almost said Jim.
Yeah, you know Jim,
He
the other
makes fun
serial
of
killer.
Jim and Jin. He looks actually at the camera like Jim from the Office, and he just
And he
stares at.
makes the face.
Yeah, he makes the face. Uh, but he makes fun of Jin for the art. He's like men. He's like men who I forget. He calls them cowards, or he says they're all dead or something. But basically, he insults Jin for being so artistic with his kills, and that he just needs to kind of man up.
Damn.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had the serial killer with Jin, and we do know that. Well, I shouldn't say we do know. It's speculated that when Jin killed that woman in his short story, he turned her into a human lamp. Uh,
Jesus.
yeah, Jin is a fucked up guy, but I think this one, at least from like that trailer image they released of him, where where it's like him jumping into the mouth of the monster,
Yeah.
and then it's his knife held up, and it looks like a shark fin and stuff. It looks like he is kind of a Jack the Ripper kind of figure, and I think that's really cool because Bilgewater is a pretty awesome place, all in all, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels like a Jack the Ripper character really fits in. There's not a lot of Bilgewater champions. There's Gangplank, Alawi, TF, Graves. Is that it? That might be it.
There's Swain
Now,
has
also,
like
Well,
some
that's
fucking.
that's a skin.
Okay, that makes sense.
um,
Um
I'm not sure if this is confirmed or not, but it was just something I saw. Apparently, in that, like in his teaser trailer, that giant fish creature, that giant sea creature, whatever.
mhm.
That's not the first time we've seen that sea creature. It was mentioned somewhere else in the lore, like completely before this.
Was it?
I don't remember the name of it. I can't remember for the life of me, but I'll find a link and put it in the description or something. I'm pretty sure it's been mentioned in the lore before.
Really?
Some kind of
That huge ass fish monster. That's crazy.
Huh. Uh I think it's in a way he seems like he seems to be a mix. He's both Bilgewater and Shadow Isles in a way, because he's got the whole like ghost theme to him too. And I'm kind of excited because they did an earlier lore thing where the Shadow Isles invaded Bilgewater, and it's called the Harrowing, and they actually have a complete history of the Harrowing over the last 30 years and the victims of the Harrowing and how far the mists got and everything. Um,
Holy fuck.
yeah, they have a complete 30 years with every boat that was lost to the mist, and how many people were killed in Bilgewater and who saved who. In fact, at one point, Gangplank and Misfortune actually made an alliance and fought back against the mist. It's the only documented time I've ever seen of them working together. So
That's kind of cool, actually.
yeah, so I think it's going to be really interesting. I'd like to see how he interacts with the Shadow Isles, and I like to see how he works during the harrowing, because that's basically, as seen with Olaf, who basically showed up in Bilgewater for whatever reason and started murdering whoever he wanted, uh, whoever he viewed as a challenge, and I think he ended up fighting a Kraken at the end of the harrowing event. Um,
Damn.
yeah, basically going forward, I'd like to see a harrowing event with Pyke. I think he'd be a pretty cool, there's you have the ghost and then all of a sudden Pyke is slitting your throat, like you can't win today. But
You fucking gone.
yeah, I mean he looks interesting. Obviously when he comes out we'll have to read his lore and go over that, but I mean so far I think he's kind of the opposite of Jin. He doesn't seem like he views it as an art. It's just like, oh, okay, we've killed we've killed another one. Cross off his name. Like,
Yeah,
Also, I
another.
found. Oh,
I think, another pentakill line that he has is he's like big progress for the list.
oh yeah, big progress for the murder list today.
Yeah. So he literally, it's like he just sees it as like his duty,
Yeah,
his job, which is interesting because I want to see like, was he designated that role or did he give it to himself?
I
Like,
imagine he's just like Jen. He's just literally a psychopath.
yeah, he's definitely a psychopath. Honestly, one of the funniest things I've seen on the League subreddit is I've seen this 6 times now. I've counted. They keep asking if he's black or white though. That
he
seems
look,
to be the main question with this champion so far. And to me, I'm just gonna say he's purple. he's got a
he's
purplish tint to his skin. Uh,
he's kind of grayish, which
he's
Well, from
undead.
what I gather from it, he is black. Now, the skin or everything, because he drowned, didn't he? That's how he died.
Hmm.
So I imagine that doesn't like bloated corpses kind of have like a purplish tint to them, kind
Yeah.
of. So I
yeah,
imagine it's like that. Also, his eyes are pure white, which is basically also another thing that like happens with bloated corpses.
Yeah.
oh yeah, like he has no pupils.
I mean, overall, I just think it was a really funny question that people kept asking.
Yeah.
There's like, if it was once or twice, I would have like brushed it off. But there was 6 topics on it from when I've checked the League subreddit. That's pretty fucking
God
funny.
damn.
Also, I read up on it, and that giant fish thing that was seen in his teaser trailer. Somebody speculated that it was Naga. My pronunciation, this is gonna be atrocious. Nagagaporis or
Uh,
something. It was like mentioned in Alawi's lore as like this giant
Oh,
sea creature.
oh.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
Nakabor.
like in.
Oh, Alawi's god. I believe that it's
Yeah,
Alawi's god. Nakabor. Yeah. Eventually we'll learn how to say that word, but yeah, Alawi's god.
Naga. I'm just gonna call it Naga for now because yeah, it's like apparently in an illustration by one of the artists of it, like looks pretty much exactly like what the teaser trailer thing was.
Huh. That
oh
would be
wow.
very interesting to see if. Wait, that actually does remind me. He does have a voice line with Alawi.
With Alawi,
All
I'm
right.
looking at it right now. Your sermons damned me, Alawi.
Your
That's what
sermon.
it says.
That is very interesting, actually. Wow. Oh my God, it does look exactly like it. We'll have to put that in. The... Wow.
Also for Jin, he says arts for fancy dead folk.
Yeah,
That was
there we
like,
go.
Arts are fancy. Dead folk.
Yeah. All right.
and he says you betrayed me, Callista.
You
I
betrayed
think
me.
I think he has a line with some of the Shadow Isles people.
Huh. All right. Well, I mean, until we, get the official story, but with the picture you just showed me and his line towards Alawi, maybe it was Naga. That would be a
Yeah.
very interesting turn of events because not only,
Yeah.
not to say that they Alawi's god wasn't confirmed realer before, but it gives now physical evidence that her god is very real,
Yeah.
and uh, that would be very interesting to see because now that's a new factor in Bilgewater that I have not taken into account before. But
Yeah.
unless you guys have any last minute things, I guess we can call it there.
Nope.
I don't think I really have anything to add.
That's about it.
All right, well, guess we'll explore either the Kinku or Darkin next week. We'll figure out then, and then we'll move forward and see how Pyke's release goes, and maybe we'll spend a podcast on him, even though we're supposed to be doing Ionia. We're very bad at sticking to our schedules. All right, so thanks for joining. I'll leave links to the to our streams and other podcasts, and see you next week.
Bye
Hope you
bye.
enjoyed.